Now, the other type of application that we've got in Windows 10 is the Modern app, and these are apps that are available through the Windows Store. And so the Windows Store is a single convenient location to access and download apps. You can access it without using the control panel, using the Start menu. It does require the use of a Microsoft account unless I'm doing side loading with business apps. These modern apps are distinct from desktop applications, but they're not quite as distinct as they used to be. They're distinct in how you get them, how they are installed. They used to be distinct in that they were full screen applications, but now they run in a resizable window and they're visible beside other desktop apps. So it's much easier to switch back and forth between the modern apps and the desktop apps. They are compatible across multiple platforms, including the phones and tablets, and they're accessible via search on the Start menu. So even if they're in the store, they will still show up. If you search for something, you can look at your results in the store and see it that way. You also install them on a single click, and technically you can share them with up to 5 different devices. If it's a free app, I guess it's not really that big of a deal, but if it's a paid for app, then you can access that app on other devices without paying again. As soon as you try to hook up the 6th one, though, you would have to deactivate the app on one of your devices. Administrators do have control over the Windows Store. In business environments, this is sometimes seen as a potential issue. A lot of these apps are not business related. You can use the local group policy, or you can use group policy that's based in the domain. We haven't looked extensively at group policy. We will a little bit later. But essentially the difference is a domain-based GPO affects multiple people and multiple users. So you can disable the Windows Store if you want. We can go through and configure applications that can be installed. We can also enable what's called side loading. Side loading is actually a mechanism for the distribution of LOB, line of business applications, without using the Windows Store, because in a business environment, I may not have users that are actually accessing the store because they don't have Microsoft accounts. LOB apps would have to be digitally signed. We would use the Deployment Image and Service Management executable or Windows PowerShell to add apps to client computers, to remove apps, to list out the apps that have been there. So they call that process side loading, really more of a development kind of thing where the apps are developed and then we go in through group policy and we configure, or administrators would configure, which apps are going to be available to the client computers. Let's take a look at the Windows Store apps. I know we have seen this a bit. Okay, so you just go into the store. The store has been redesigned. As I said, a lot of what you're going to see in here is not really business related, but if you did have something that was business related, we'll go to Word, for instance. Here's Word Mobile. Shows up, says it's free. I click on free, and then it'll go through and start a download. Once it has downloaded that file, then I will be able to install it. Okay? There's some other free ones, maybe one that's a little bit different. Yeah, that's 0.3 megabytes. It's a little bit different than 120. So now it's installed. We go ahead and click and open up, and there you have it. Now, as we said, they now open up and not in full screen. If you want them in full screen, you can do a full screen application. But if you have them like this, then it's going to allow you to cycle back and forth between different apps. They will show up here on the Start menu. Okay, so just like other desktop applications, if you go to All Apps, you're going to have several of these are Windows Store apps. Excel Mobile is a Windows Store app. MetroTube, the Microsoft Solitaire Collection, Money, all of that stuff those are Windows Store apps. They're sitting right next to the desktop applications. Okay, so you do have access to that, and as I said, with group policy, you can control what people are able to get to. You can disable it entirely. We can do the side loading. There's really not a whole lot to this. They've made some nice enhancements, but when you select an app, if you want to install it, you just simply click install, and then it will download and install. Once there, it shows up. Okay. So, and in this case, if I sign in, then I'd have access to any books that I had on Kindle. So really, it's a determination as to whether or not we want people using the Windows Store apps in a business type of environment. Microsoft is trying to make headway to get us to that point, but the jury's still out, so to speak. And so we'll see if a lot of businesses start developing these type of modern apps and making them available to their users.